So, looking at the other side, I mean, if you look at Tony Award nominations in recent years, an awful lot of them, and Tony Award-winning plays, go to plays that have either been produced by nonprofits, or have, you know, by themselves, or in partnership with commercial producers. They've gone first to nonprofits, theaters, and then to New York. Is it fair to say that Broadway is a more interesting place because of these deals, and that in some ways these partnerships are enabling greater risk-taking to happen, and for plays that deserve a large audience, merit a large audience, and wouldn't otherwise get it? I mean, Spring Awakening, Gala.
Broadway is much better off. Broadway is much better off with having these plays. No argument there. I'm not so as concerned about Broadway as I'm about the resident theater.
But is the, you know, I guess, so what happens?
So it's a good thing for Broadway.
So overnight, you say these partnerships can't happen anymore. I mean, who suffers in that?
These partnerships are here to stay. They're always going to happen. And I think it used to have a situation where a resident theater would do a play for itself, a chorus line, and it would have such popularity, and you could see that this would have a long and popular run, so you would move that play to a Broadway house. That's different than an enhancement process where a commercial producer comes into the theater, essentially rents that theater for their own purposes, and moves the show to Broadway, as was always part of the plan. The resident theater doesn't have much say in that process. But resident theaters have always done plays that have moved, at least since 1968 or whatever, that have moved to Broadway. That's always going to happen. The danger comes when the not-for-profit theaters start gearing themselves up as essentially Broadway tryouts.
So would you be in favor then? You know, I know you're saying these deals are probably not going to go away. They do actually benefit. There is a benefit. I mean, that you see from them. Do you think that we need new tax structures or something? Some of the organizations.
Perhaps. I mean, there are probably things you can do. You know, I'm not priggish. I don't think you should just blow the whistle every time a resident theater has a commercial transfer. You know, I spent too much time on Broadway not to appreciate the importance of that. But I think there are, you know, the museums have this. After the Saatchi exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum around, I don't know, 2000 or whatever that was, caused a furor because essentially a commercial producer, to keep the same terminology, was using a not-for-profit institution to enhance the value of his show, his collection. And the museum directors, the Museum Association, got together and issued guidelines for how to essentially regulate that. Right. And that certain things were permissible, certain things were not permissible. The chances of LORT or TCG in their present form doing that is less than zero. But they should do it. I mean, it used to be, these organizations have now become trade organizations. They used to be associations of artistic enterprises when you had a dozen of them in a room and they were thinking together about what is the theater, what is our mission, and what is our ideal, and what are we going to do in these. Now they're representing the financial and business interests of hundreds of theaters, and they're different organizations with different leadership, and I don't think they're going to get to these issues anytime soon, unfortunately.
But that's something that you would be encouraging in those discussions.
Totally, I would.
So shifting, the Americans for the Arts released their latest National Arts Index a couple of days ago, and it's sobering. The percentage points have gone down 3.6 points. Demand for the arts, they say, continues to lag behind supply. There's a long-term decline in attendance. And yet at the same time, during the recession from 2007 to 2009, 3,000 more nonprofit arts organizations were created.
It's insane. It defies all logic. Attendance is declining precipitously, and yet the number of institutions is growing exponentially. At some point, there's going to be a disconnect.
So that, I guess, one of the recommendations or summaries from that report is that we have to significantly increase demand, which I think is probably an understatement at this point. 41% of arts organizations are unable to balance their budgets in 2008.
You would also decrease supply.
Could also decrease supply. What, how do you know, is that what you would encourage instead? I mean, is that what you think is, how do you reconcile this situation? What do we do about, flagging attendance?
It's very difficult to increase demand. Just ask Barack Obama. Everybody wants to increase demand in the economy. That's the engine that runs the whole economy. You want more people to have demand for more tickets. That's not easy to do. There are things you can do to address it. I think these theaters should get out and around in their communities. They shouldn't just be these temples on a hill that people are intimidated by and maybe don't feel welcomed at. They should engage their communities in maybe in smaller units and get out there. There should be work that attracts the audiences. But those are easy things to say. In the long run, I think you also have to right-size the supply to the demand, and maybe there should be fewer theaters.
Talk more about this community aspect. I mean, in your remarks, you talked about New York sort of, I mean, ironically becoming the holy grail again for this resident theater movement, since that was in fact, it's now become to some degree, for some people.
The other day, one of Tennessee Williams' plays is unmistakably set in St. Louis. Another is unmistakably in New Orleans. One of the things that theater does is convey a tremendous sense of place, because it's live, physical, palpable, in real time in front of you in a particular place, in a particular community, in a city. And I think that producers of these resident theaters need to be mindful of that, much more than they probably are.
Right. I'm going to open it up in a second. I'm going to read one question that came to me. Michael Road at Sojourn Theater emailed me a question that he wanted me to ask you. From the President's State of the Union address last night, earlier on that. He said, last night, the President spoke about creativity and innovation. It's a long question. The President spoke about creativity and innovation and demonstrated again and again the need for America to lead in areas of science, math, industry. He spoke of education and science and math. This is a president who supports the arts and culture, but even so, the idea of linking the work of the imagination at the heart of art making to creativity and innovation, not even a passing reference. Given the lack of value in mainstream public discourse attributed to the power and potential of art and art making as an engine for vision and discovery, given the consistently common perception of art as a consumable commodity rather than a distinctly vital and healthy part of our social fabric, what can the NEA do on behalf of artists and our fellow Americans who could benefit from our being enlisted in this Sputnik moment, to recognize and foreground the artistic impulse, the artistic action, the artistic event, as not just diversionary or even meaningfully cultural, but rather as a set of muscles without which innovation and creativity are simply knowledge and experience waiting to catch fire. He then summarizes, what can the NEA do to bring the value we already offer at tables all around the nation to our nation's head table, and name us, artists, as resources who can be reached, engaged, and can be of tremendous service.
The question really has two parts. What is the President doing, and what is the NEA doing? And those are, in this case, very related. The President has very much accepted embraced our narrative at the NEA. We're trying to be at the what I like to call the intersection of the arts and the real world. We're trying to highlight the role of arts in neighborhood revitalization, community building, economic development, all the things that the arts can do in the real world and the real economy. And the President has embraced that, and his answer to me, when I pose that challenge, is that, frankly, the NEA is never going to get particularly in this environment, a significant appropriation increase from Congress to do all the work that we need to do. But if you look at each of the federal agencies, if you look at each of the cabinet secretaries, they preside over domains that have vastly more resources, 1,000-fold more resources than the NEA has. And what I've been doing with the encouragement, and more than encouragement, the President opening these doors, is going around to the cabinet secretaries and saying, let's find points of intersection where we can work together. And to me, the arts are almost an ideal, the President's talking a lot about collaboration among the agencies. That's really the hallmark of this administration. And what better or more ideal fulcrum for that kind of collaboration than the arts, in places, in cities, in communities. Because each of these federal agencies has an aspect that can engage the arts. The Department of Transportation, Ray LaHood is, I think, a visionary leader, and he understands that the Department of Transportation shouldn't be just about engineering and road building. It has to be about livability, quality of life. Sean Donovan at HUD, the same thing. Tom Vilsack at the Department of Agriculture. So we're finding points of intersection where real resources can be brought into the field. And by the way, that's ultimately my job.
This soaring roof really serves as a metaphor for what Arena Stage has become. We're now a center. That's the most profound difference. We're a center for the production, presentation, development, and study of American theater. So as you wander through the theater, as you go through the new center, check out all the corners as you go, because what you will see is activity in each one of these pillars. We just began rehearsals for At Home at the Zoo in our own production for the Edward Albee Festival. We will be joined in March by Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, coming in from Steppenwolf in Chicago. Our commitment to presentation is in full flower right now on two of our stages, with Arabian Nights and Let Me Down Easy, presenting Looking Glass Theater in Chicago and Second Stage in New York. We're really looking for the most potent artistic voices and visual artists in America to be bringing them here to the new center to shine a spotlight on some of the wonderful companies working around America today. We're also in the midst of the New Play Festival, which is part of the development pillar. That's all happening in this space, a new theater space that has been designed and developed for productions of new American plays, first, second, and third productions, premieres and second and third productions, and also to cradle risk. And of course, this convening is part of our commitment to the study pillar of American theater, and also encompasses the development study. There are over 120
all through it, and I think it's essentially that it actually needs to be created from the ground up. And I think that to some degree, it's fair to say that the theater got regionalization.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have quite a bit, many of them, but many of them need to have more of it. I think we need to go into this and that particular room. And certainly, we see this in the
You're changing the system, the tax system that currently supports the idea of donations to cultural institutions, or would you favor the notion of bringing some centralized control to managing the number of those institutions?
I don't think we can do that by executive fiat in Washington. I certainly wouldn't change the tax structure, which does encourage charitable giving and support for these institutions. I do think, though, that in the case of the and certainly all funding should not be centralized, and we shouldn't dictate to that you live and you don't. But I do think in the case of the NEA, when we give grants of $10,000 or $20,000, is that the most useful way to spend our money? Should we be giving large